Welcome r/Nuclearrevenge. Crappy customer gets vandalized. I work at a restaurant where the employees are overworked and underpaid. Despite this, everyone is cool with each other and management. The evils that mess up our day are the customers and our by-the-book district manager who drops by every now and then. For about 3 months we had someone in the men's bathroom come in and smear an ungodly amount of fecal matter all over the handicap stall of the men's bathroom. Even sometimes they'll fling scat outside of the stall onto another toilet or a wall. Of course, management sent one of us peons to clean it up. Fortunately for me, I never had to as I worked the cash register. The one coworker, who we'll call Arthur, was who I'd call the personification of pettiness. He was crazy and had a smart mouth and an explosive temper when pushed too far. Me and Arthur were cool. I never had problems with him, but management always had him clean out the bathroom when it was poop smeared. One day, Arthur came in on his day off to get some food. After placing his order he went to use the restroom. While there, he heard someone moan and groan, having a massive shitstorm in the handicap stall. He didn't think much of it, even when he smelled that god-awful scent. An older gentleman around 50 exited the stall. Arthur came out and noticed the smell was even stronger than before. Curious, he peeked into the stall and noticed the poop smears all over the place. Infuriated, he asked the old man if he had done that, and why would he even? The old guy said with a scat-eating grin, "Look, I don't care. I just want to ruin some poor day." Arthur was set the off, as he was that poor. Initially Arthur wanted to clock the guy right then and there, but in his own words, time slowed down around him and all he saw was red. Arthur didn't say anything to man, instead washed his hands and sat back down waiting for his food. He sat on the opposite end of the restaurant, but the location provided an overview of the entire floor. He could see the old guy at his booth munching away like nothing happened. Of course someone complained that there was poop smeared all over, and one of the other employees that Arthur was cool with had to go clean up the mess. Arthur caught the old guy looking on at the situation and grinning to himself. Seeing that, Arthur thought the man needed to be taught a hard and hurtful lesson. The old guy finished his food and drove home. Little did he know that Arthur was following him. He ends up following old guy to his home and stakes it out for an hour. Arthur does this for a couple of weeks, following him home, learning about this guy as quick as possible. Even on days off he drove over to where he lived and followed him to both the restaurant and to his old guy's company. Arthur gotten a rough idea of this guy's work and sleep schedule, so it was time to enact his revenge. Going by the information he acquired about the guy's activities in the neighborhood he lived in, Arthur figured out that this guy lived well enough to survive, but had no means of backup if something were to happen. Arthur had a 3-part plan for him. First act. In the dead of night, Arthur went to the old guy's house. He slashed one of the tires. The old guy drove a Jeep, so Arthur opened the spare tire compartment and poked a small hole in it. The old guy woke up the following morning to find his tire flat. According to Arthur, the old man was on the phone freaking out because he was going to be running late for work and really didn't have the money to get a new tire. Not only that, to Arthur's surprise, the old guy didn't know how to change a tire. The old guy spent nearly 2 hours in the hot Texas morning heat on the phone with someone on how to put the spare tire on. This is important for later in this act. At this point, Arthur is foaming at the mouth with excitement. The old guy drove on the spare to work, only to find out that afternoon that the spare went flat. Even more frustrated, the old man drives the car to a nearby auto shop to get both tires serviced. Later that night, this time Arthur slashed 3 out of 4 of his tires. Remember when old guy was on the phone getting instructions on how to get his tire fixed? Well, before that, he had called his car insurance company to get someone to come out and fix his tire. He was very loud and the gist of the conversation was that the insurance company wouldn't come out and fix his tire and couldn't get them insured because all 4 tires weren't blown out. They said it would be easier and least expensive to just change the tire himself and get another. So later that night, Arthur slashed the other 3 tires save for the new one. Arthur wasn't there that following morning, but he knew that the old guy surely had a meltdown. That and he didn't show up to the restaurant for a month. Second act. Piggybacking on the first act, Arthur would regularly check on old guy's car. When all the tires were replaced, Arthur went to the old guy's house late at night and poured 1.5 gallons of sugar and bleach into the gas tank. His car had one of those manual gas covers instead of the modern button inside the car, so no one was none the wiser. In the morning, during Arthur's stakeouts, the old man started his car up and left for work, only to get halfway there before the car stopped working. So old guy had to get his car towed to his house. The final act. Arthur got the old guy's name from the phone conversation and searched him on Facebook. He downloaded a couple of good pictures of him and created a few flyers. Due to the old guy's car being unusable, he wasn't able to come into the restaurant to do his usual crap, pun intended. Arthur printed the flyers out and posted them all over the restaurant. The flyers had a picture of the guy, his name, and described what he did in bathrooms for the past few months. A few days later, the old guy comes in with a friend. The friend goes ahead and orders while old guy runs to the bathroom. One of the coworkers spotted him and notifies everyone there, including the friend. Old guy starts to do his thing in the stall until he sees a flyer with his face on it. He storms out of the bathroom, flyer in hand, angrily demanding for the person responsible to step up to him. Arthur steps up in his uniform and claims responsibility. The old guy begins threatening to sue for slander and emotional damages and other offenses, to which Arthur simply says with an equally scat-eating grin, "Look, I don't care. I just want to ruin some poor day." Old guy's soul momentarily leaves his body as he realizes that the same guy he confessed his crime to weeks ago was one of the employees. The managers arrive and ban the old guy from the restaurant. Old guy threatens to ram his car into the windows, to which Arthur says, "Is your car a unicycle? Better check your tires, you poor." Old guy then realizes that Arthur was behind the attacks. Banned from the restaurant, no hard evidence of Arthur's vandalism, and extreme embarrassment, old guy decides to bow out. Haven't seen or heard from him since. Unfortunately, fast forward a month and 2 nights ago, Arthur got arrested from fighting an off-duty officer at a convenience store. TL. Doctor, crazy and patient mad lad gets back at a shitty customer for being a shitty human being by destroying his car, and gets him banned from the restaurant. Getting away with it. Gets arrested for an unrelated crime. Lots of places don't care about OSHA. I worked at a university bookstore for several years. One of the employees was a boy with Down syndrome and hepatitis C. His responsibilities were to vacuum and dust. He often put others at risk of contagion. The worst case scenario that I saw was when the boy had bitten his tongue and was bleeding in his mouth. He kept spitting the blood whenever and wherever he wanted, including on the textbooks. The management gave a few of the student workers some latex gloves and paper towels. Just paper towels, no bleach, and no special disposal of the contaminated items, from paper towels, to gloves, to books, and told the students to wipe up the blood and saliva, and leave the books on the shelf to be sold. I was a supervisor, not management, in a different department, but when I saw what was going on, I spoke up and said something about how it was a huge violation of OSHA for all of that to be happening. And I said we specifically had a cleaning staff that was trained how to properly clean up the blood and saliva, and the books should be disposed of, not sold. Hep C can survive outside the body from 4 days to 3 weeks, depending on the conditions. I was quickly reprimanded for overstepping my position and threatened disciplinary action if I spoke up or spoke out about it. The boy's parents were big time donors to the university, so the boy was basically allowed to do anything, anytime, and nobody was allowed to say boo about it. And apparently this was one of those times. But I wasn't even saying anything about the boy. He didn't know any better. But the way management handled it was a serious risk to many students. Anyway, the point is, this situation happened at a public university, where rules like OSHA's are supposed to be like the 10 Commandments were to Moses. And they just didn't care. It's scary and sad how frequently people disregard other people's health and safety, especially when it saves them a penny. Something makes me suspect that the old guy might have done his shitty antics also in somewhere else. Arthur should have followed him in his workplace and leave those flyers under the wipers of the cars of other employees in the parking lot. He could have left the flyers also in the mailboxes the serial poopers' neighbors and stapled them on the lampposts in that neighborhood. A person with somewhat regular bowel movements poops every day, and considering that his visits at the restaurant weren't daily occurrence, he might have been a nuisance also in many other places. First we have Arthur Morgan. Man gets his revenge on several occasions and repents for his sins. In the end, he dies from tuberculosis. Then we have this Arthur. Man gets his revenge and also gets the old guy banned from the restaurant. In the end, he gets arrested. Why is the world against people named Arthur?